Okay, I used to have the same tone in the background for this thing that would kind of let me know when to push the buttons. Um,
Oh,
but now we're live, so it's okay. Now we're totally
okay.
live. We're playing on YouTube.
Yay!
Um, Yay, YouTube. So, hey, folks, welcome to Stuff You Should Know About Digital Marketing. I have the pleasure of getting to chat with Amy Tiemann, she's a multifamily investor, is probably the best way to put it, and
Yeah.
consultant with background in construction and things like that. So we'll touch on all of that, how that plays into digital marketing for her, and how you can probably use it for you as well. So, hey, Amy, thanks for joining me. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's awesome.
Absolutely. So we were just chatting a little bit, finding out how we have these things that kind of fall in line with family businesses and
Yeah.
construction and things like that.
Yeah.
So I my mine started in roofing. What was yours? What was your family business? What did you guys
It
start out?
was a glass company. So we did auto glass, residential glass, kind of commercial glass. My grandfather started it in 1960. And he had worked for, you're familiar with San Antonio, Samuel's Glass. He first started working for
Yeah.
them at the one down over by the Pearl. That's where my
Okay.
granddad worked. And then
Oh,
left there in '59, and went and started his own company in 19. But he moved to McAllen and he started his own company in 1960. So yeah. And then my dad came in and he took it over in 1972 after he graduated from A&M. And he was he graduated from A&M and he was working for a construction company in Houston, and then he came back down to kind of help with the family business, and he really kind of turned it into a more commercial kind of glass company where they were doing schools and high rises and all. We still kind of did the auto glass and residential glass, but the commercial was the turned into very much the largest part of what they started doing. So yeah, so I was little and I was riding around in the truck and doing all that kind of stuff. So yeah, yeah.
the back of the truck with no seatbelt on.
Oh yeah, in the
Back in the olden
'70s, like
days.
there. I remember riding. This is a funny story. Segue squirrel. Um, my brother and sister and I were about a year apart, and they used to have this sedan. And I remember fighting over to be the one that would sit because the seats were like the long seats and the little, by the rear view, the window in the back. By the seat, there's this like
Yeah.
little ledge right there. We used to fight over who get to lay there, right? When we were little, like in 1974 or whatever. It was a Buick something. I don't remember, but we were like 4 or 5, or I can't remember with you.
I remember my only rule for riding in the back of the truck was we couldn't sit on the wheel well,
Yes,
on the hump over
yes,
the wheel,
yeah,
because,
yeah.
because that was too high. But we could, if you hit a speed bump
Throw you
fast
out.
enough, you're still going to catch air. Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Um,
I remember.
and like so many people too. So you were introduced, or you grew up around construction sites and things like that.
Yep.
But like so many kids, especially in that era, it's like I don't want to have anything to do with my parents' business. That's their gig,
Yeah,
whatever. And you found yourself taking off and going to school somewhere. And
I
tell a little
did.
bit about that journey, because all of this stuff kind of builds into the conversation.
Does. It's really kind of interesting. But yes, so I went. I was in McAllen, which is on the border, right? And so I graduated in 1989. There wasn't really club volleyball. I played volleyball, right? There was no
Okay.
club volleyball. It was recruiting was really weird. It was like, not like it is today. And so I had to really kind of just go find a place to be. Like I just, wasn't a high profile, volleyball player, right? And so but I went and walked on. I went to UTS. I started at UTSA and I just walked onto the team and made it, right? I mean, and a lot of that stuff, it's really kind of interesting. Like when you go to the starting over thing, all of that, like when I was a kid, I never took no for an answer. I mean, I was always the kid, like, I'll look at the team and go, yeah, I can outwork you. I'm okay. Like, yeah, I could probably make this team, right? that kind of stuff. So yeah, it was interesting. So I looked at the team and went, yeah, I could make it. I'll be okay, you know. And
There
so
you
I did. I
go.
walked on the team. So yeah, and
Cool.
then I transferred after that, and I was at UTSA, and then I was I had a medical issue, so I left, and then I was up in Minnesota. And the crazy thing is I was going to walk onto that team too. I was going to walk on for the University of Minnesota, and she wanted me to come play. I had been sitting out of class. I was on like the 9 year plan. Don't judge me, guys. I around, whatever, and did all this stuff. And I was gonna walk on to that. I was gonna walk onto that team, and she wanted me to come play. And I was trying to get into school, but because I had withdrawn from my last semester, Minnesota wanted me to kind of wait, and it was taking me forever to kind of get into the school. And I was like, but I really want to play. And so then I ended up walking on to a little school called Indiana Purdue Fort Wayne, and it's now Purdue Fort Wayne.
Okay.
And I really liked it because they had a men's team there, and it was just the coolest atmosphere to play. Where there's a Division 1 men's volleyball team, and you're on the women's team, and it was just fun. It was just so much. I had so much fun. I had so much fun playing there, and I did. I went there, walked on too, said, "Yep, I can make it. I'll make it anywhere. I'll figure it out." Right. So I just showed up out of the blue, said, "Hey, I want to play," and and then I ended up getting a scholarship eventually a year later, and I was a starter. So yeah, that's kind of
Wow.
my career as a kid in volleyball and all that other stuff. And then then I transferred after that to Purdue. Once my eligibility was done, I transferred to Purdue
Mhm.
and finished
Okay.
my degree in yeah. So yeah, that was kind of my weird college, high school career there. So
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I get the 9 year plan. It took me 4 years to finish my AA.
Oh yeah.
But I was racing bicycles, stuff like that. And
Oh
back in
well,
that era, for
that
people
was
who
really
are, well, yeah, and for people watching this, back in that era, we didn't have computers and tablets we could take with us traveling.
right,
So if you weren't in class like physically,
right. Yes,
like this wouldn't work now with this whole COVID thing. You had to be there physically in order to get instruction. Now, I mean, we do everything on video or tablets or whatever. It's all mobile. But
yeah.
back
The
then,
world
you
has
really
changed
had to
so
be there.
much. Yeah, and how you can get educated. I mean, you basically can go get a bachelor's degree or master's degree, and never have to step foot on a campus ever,
Yeah,
which is really great because my son's in the military, and that's exactly what he's doing. He's taking
for
online
sure.
classes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. That's why
yeah,
I always respected people that I knew, especially at the level that I raced bikes at, who who went and got a 4 year degree while they were racing bikes
wow,
internationally. It was like,
wow.
how in the heck can you do that? I can barely I can't do anything other than ride a bike. It's like I was so compartmentalized. It's like I
Hmm.
could only do one thing at a time,
Yeah,
and that might be for years.
yeah.
So yeah, it took me 4 years to finish my 2 year degree. So don't worry about the whole 9 years to do four. It's okay.
You know,
But from but
nobody
from
beat me
Purdue,
yet. I've not met anyone who beat me yet. So I claim it. I claim that crown. The longest person to take to get a bachelor's degree. I have not met anybody who's taken like 9 years. Really? Like, yep. Started in '89, graduated in '98. You know. So I like it. I
and
like my
here's my
little
piece of paper to prove it.
honor.
That's kind of cool.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, that's
Exactly.
kind of cool.
Yeah.
So you graduated from Purdue, and you did not go back
Yeah.
into the family business, even though you grew up around it. You went into
Well,
the tech
I
world,
did
yeah.
for a year. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah, I did for a year after I graduated. It was '98. It was I was stupid. I graduated in the summer. Like, who's going to recruit you in the summer? Like, nobody, right?
sure.
But I was hurrying. I didn't want to stay for another semester. I was on the 9 years, and I'm like, come on. And I needed like two classes. So I just went and I just got it done, got it over with in the summer, and said, okay, I couldn't graduate in the spring. I tried, but I was like, in the spring, I was taking 15 hours,
Oh
and
wow.
it was in my capstone classes as a senior, and those are just hard classes. So I was just like, yeah, I can't get 18 hours. I'll just die. Like I'll just die. And so I had one more class to take, and then I had, and then I just retook another class to get my GPA higher. I was like, well, if I'm gonna take three, might as well. You have to take up to six. It's the same price. Might as well, So I took two
Yeah.
classes in the summer, and then I graduated. So it's kind of
Your
what I did.
parents were probably your parents were probably on top of it too, going, "Hey, it's been 9 years for crying out loud. Let's
Exactly.
roll."
I know. I know. By that point, though, I was paying for my own school, so they weren't paying for it. It's kind of nice. So yeah.
That probably stopped. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
we only planned for five.
I know. I know. I know. I know. Back then, thank the Lord, student loans were plenty. Like you could just go, like, look at them, and they go, "Here you go. Here's some money." It's not like that today. But back then, you got it was like candy. You're handing out candy. All the student loan money you get.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So yeah. So I managed on loans,
And some of us
which I'm
treated
still
it
paying
like
off by the way.
so. So you spent a year back in the family business, then you split. You went into the tech world,
I did.
um, and got to experience the whole .com thing. So
Yeah.
talk about that a little bit.
Well, so I started at it was a software company called Tivoli, and it was fairly large by the time I joined it. But I was hired to kind of help on mergers and acquisitions because I had like project management and HR experience, and so what I did was they it was IBM had bought Tivoli, right? But
Okay.
Tivoli, I don't know why. It was like the weirdest thing ever, but they hated IBM. But IBM had bought them out. So like, come on, let's be a team player and play. But no, they didn't want to do that. And so they fought it like the whole time. Like they already bought you, weirdos. But and then there was this little tiny company called DASCOM. And so what they were trying to do is merge these three security software companies into one business unit, which would then go sell and make stuff and they turn it into this business unit. And it was IBM's business unit, even though it happened to be at the Tivoli where I was stationed at was the Tivoli headquarters. It was crazy. Like, I mean, the little company that got bought out, they were former IBMers. They hated IBM. Tivoli hated IBM. IBM went and did all this like mergers and stuff, and they did all this crazy crap, and everybody hated their guts, but they had the money, and so they bought everybody, and then they kind of went. But so making that a cohesive team, oh yeah, that was fun. Yeah, that was special. So my job was to get them to play together, and we took all the pieces, like how do we get them integrated into the HR stuff, and then how do we get them to do some teamwork stuff, and how do we do? Oh, it was crazy. It was crazy, but
And
yeah, I
from
mean, it's nuts.
from an
Yeah.
HR perspective, that was probably just like nothing but joyous time.
Oh, and just oh yeah, and just the dumb things. Like, oh, there was this. This is a funny story. I have to tell this. So if you don't, I don't know if you know who Lou Gerstner is, but he was the CEO. Do you remember a company called Lotus? Yeah, it was
I
back
do.
Lotus Notes. Remember?
Yeah.
So Lotus was an
Yeah.
IBM company. Well,
Okay.
there was a person that was a part of this merger, and she was working on this like pet project for Lou, who was the CEO of Lotus. And some stupid security dude, she shows up to work one day. I got all the crazy calls, right? So she shows up at work one day, and her badge access doesn't work anymore. And she's like, oh crap, like I can't get into the building. And she's working on the pet project for Lou, right? And so I'm sitting there and like going, oh, honey, figure it out. Just hold on. You're not fired. It's okay. Let me go figure this. And some stupid security dude not only did that, he deleted all of her work on her computers, like wiped her computers. Oh, yes. I mean, deleted her in the HR system. Just, I don't know. He was having a bad day. I don't like her. Right? Delete. Oh, my Lord. Oh, my Lord. It was crazy. And so she calls me going, Amy, what's going on? I go, I don't know, honey, because you're supposed to be working. So let me go figure it out. And I was like, and then I called her back and went, I don't know. That guy's on crack. I don't know. I go, please tell me you have a backup at home. Please tell me you have a backup. She's like, yes, I got two. I was like, I was like, because, and that guy got fired that day, by the way.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Time he had messed up on somebody. And so I'm like, oh, thank God she's got a backup at home. Thank the Lord.
Back in the era when things weren't really backed up on site.
I know. Yeah, I know. She had to take, like, you remember those big, like, honking, like, external drives? That's what she had. And then she would have to take
on the backpack.
Yes, exactly. And then plug it into her computer because there's no such thing as a cloud, Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was weird. So, yeah. So I did that. And then after I finished that whole project, I went and worked at Applied Materials. And I was in HR Applied Materials, and I did that for about 4 years. So I went through, like, I got there, it was June of 2000. They were on the tear, right? And Applied Materials is kind of like a leading indicator of a lot of stuff because they, they're the equipment manufacturer before the chips get made, right? So if the chip makers kind of foresee demand, they'll start ordering equipment, right? So if Applied Materials is doing well and they're not, then there's a boom coming a little bit later, right? Well, so they were ramping like crazy. They had been doing it for months. And then I don't think anybody foresaw what was going to happen in 2001. I mean, even before 9/11, a lot of this, they started pulling back. And so the tech crash of 2001 happened. So I came in, I was trying to find engineers, like looking under rocks, and I couldn't find any, and I couldn't do any of this stuff. And it wasn't even my job to recruit, but it became my job because the recruiting team couldn't keep up with the demand that they had there. And so I was, doing all sorts of stuff. And then all of a sudden I remember to this day, I love this guy. We're still friends. His name was Sho Oda. And he was my engineering director, and he's Japanese, and he was hilarious. And he comes up to my desk, and I was like, oh, okay, what's going on? And Amy, stop hiring. And I went, yes, sir. And that was about 3 months before the first layoff. And he just knew. He'd been worked for Applied Materials since '95, and he'd just seen a couple of cycles, and he could see what was going on. And he's like, stop hiring, cancel all your recs. And I had like 47 open. I mean, I was still looking for engineers, and he's like, nope, stop, done. I'm like, yes, sir, no problem. So I did. And so, yeah. And so 4 years of that. So I got in there, I was hiring like crazy, and all of a sudden it was layoff. We did all the temps, and then another layoff, and then another layoff, and then another layoff. I got really good at letting people go. It's crazy. But that's my dog. Sorry. But I went through about 8 layoffs. And then
wow,
I had made it through all of them. But by the time I got to the 8th one, you're cutting really deep. You're cutting to really, really good people. And you are, how do I explain it? They're making stupid decisions, and it bothered me because I'm the one, having to, I know what's going on behind the scenes to determine who's going to have a job and who's not going to have a job, right? I see all of it, and I was like, well, that's stupid. Why'd you do that? And no, you should have saved that person. Don't let that person go. There was an employee who had been with the company for 22 years. Like, he started in the garage with the CEO that started the company, and he had all he was a technician. That's all he was, right? I mean, and he knew chambers inside and out, whatever. And they had temporarily moved him over to final test because they knew they were having an issue, whatever. But because he had temporarily moved to that other location, they laid him off. And I was just like, no, you just moving back to chambers, and are y'all nuts? You lost your mind? This guy's been with the company for 22 years. No, you save him. I don't care. You let somebody else go. I don't care. But no, and it's just all sorts of stupid things. Like, just not making any sense at all. And I was just like, yeah, I'm done. I'm done.
So yeah, so now you're done. You go through all of this fun time.
Yeah.
you start a new company.
Yes.
You get into construction. You're doing
Yeah.
construction stuff uh, and investing at the same time, or was it just construction at the beginning and then investing?
Right. So it was initially construction. So we started a little. My husband at the time, we started a little construction company doing commercial construction, and we were doing just remodels and retail stores. Basically, that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
where we started, and it was kind of at the same time that I was leaving applied materials. So it was like really, really new. I was helping a little bit on the side anyway because you just, I was doing the books and doing all sorts of administrative stuff for him, and so yeah, and then I was just like, I'm good. I can we let's grow this and do something really, really cool. And so we did, and we to about, let's see, we started 2004. So by 2010 or 2011, we hit our 16th state of doing commercial construction. So we did all over the place, just like they call them they're called them tenant finish outs. Basically, you go into a white box in a strip center and you basically finish it out for the retail tenant, or you go into a ground up building and do the same thing, or we would do ground up too. That's my dog. Oh my lord! Hold on. He wants to be on camera. He wants to be on camera. He wants to come say hi. So he's my protector. Okay.
No,
So, anyways, we would do that, and we would go in, but it was kind of interesting because normal construction, right? So we didn't get construction. People are like used to delays, used to
mm-hmm.
cost overruns. You're used to all that kind of stuff. Well, the companies we worked for couldn't do that crap because they were publicly traded. So you couldn't miss a deadline. Like if they say they're going to open 110 stores in that quarter, by God, you better freaking open your store. So because they can't miss on the street, right? They couldn't miss anything, right?
Yeah.
So and we became known to them as the people like, oh, we'll give it to them because it's almost impossible, but they could probably do it, right? So we would go. Oh my lord, I remember getting a store and having to have it completely finished out, up and running in 7 days.
Oh
And then,
wow.
yeah, I mean, putting in HVAC systems, running electrical, like, putting up the walls, like everything. You had to do everything in 7 days. And, and it would be Utah of all places, right? And we know nobody. And you're going there and you're trying to convince people to come in and do work for you. And oh, by the way, yes, you can charge us extra. They know because it's a rush job and we know this, right? But then you got to get them to trust you that you're actually going to pay them, right? And you have to do all this stuff because they're on 30-day billing, and we would front the jobs a little bit, but we couldn't front the whole thing. And so yeah, it was an interesting conversation with some of those subcontractors because you're just like, please, 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 please.
I
I
know
need
you
these
don't. I know you
tomorrow.
don't know me. I know you don't know me, but
Yeah,
trust me, I
yeah,
will. We'll
exactly.
take care
Yeah,
of this.
exactly. And some of
So,
the time, it was just me on the phone. I didn't even get to meet me in person. It was me on the phone going, "Hey, please, 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 please. I promise, I promise, I promise. We need an HVAC system. Do you happen to have one in stock?" And so you had to call fairly large, subs that could handle. It wasn't like Joe on the street that could do some of that stuff, right? And then they had to be insured, and they had to be, so you're dealing with a small pool of contractors. But yeah, I mean, that was the stuff that we did, and we did it all the time, just kind of routinely
so,
stuff. So yeah,
so back then, how were you able to find the client
a
at
lot
that
of
time?
it.
That time.
Oh, in that time, it was
Yeah.
all relationships, right, and
Okay.
people that you knew, right. Sometimes we would go. There would be like in the construction world that there would be an RFP put out, and they would be looking for different stuff, but not generally. That's not the stuff we bid on. Like it
Okay.
wasn't municipal work or anything like that. It was just generally relationship building, kind of the stuff I do now, but
Sure.
it was kind of relationship building with the corporate real estate teams on, hey, I've got projects coming up. I'll have like, 5 or 10 this coming year. Will you let us bid on one? Right.
Sure.
And once you
Gotcha.
get in and you perform, then they kind of, they'll start throwing more to you. It was all negotiated work. It really was. It was, you would give them a bid, but then, and generally your bids you were pretty close to come with some stuff. But if there was unforeseen stuff, you would issue a change order, you do whatever. But yeah,
Sure.
generally it was all through that, all through relationships. So yeah.
So let's move forward to about now. So you've
Mm-hmm.
got your company, you went doing the construction, then
Yep.
you started doing investing. And when we were talking a couple of days ago, we mentioned Carlton Sheets,
Yes.
which I thought was funny. Is that how you kind of got introduced to investing, or how did that happen?
Yeah. So no, I mean, I ended up buying his program when I was younger. Like, I was, I don't know, 25 or whatever. I mean, when I first bought his program, I didn't use any of it when I
Yeah.
first. I kind of did, but now I first started real estate investing. I guess it was in 2008. I found a house. It was vacant. It happened to be right down the street from where a kid had t-ball practice, right? And I was like walking and I saw this house. It was vacant. It was a pretty good neighborhood, and so I went and called up the owner and found out, used a broker and found out that it was an estate sale, and they didn't want very much money for it, and so we ended up buying it, and that was how we flipped our first one. um, yeah,
Okay.
and then we'd been doing a lot of construction, so this was like 4 years after uh, we started the construction business. So it was simple and easy because you had all the subs, you had all the supplier relationships, you had all of that kind of stuff. So
Sure.
actually getting it renovated was not, wasn't awful. It was actually fairly easy to do.
Well, especially if you're going from having to do seven-day turnarounds on a
Yes,
commercial project,
exactly.
doing a 2 week turnaround on a
Yep.
residential would be pretty easy. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And then we learned a lot. I mean, it was, we kind of Chip and Joanne at it and spent way too much money on it and it was stupid, right? I mean, we did like spent like way too much money on it, updating it. It was, for the market that it was in, we made it too nice, and you couldn't rent it, so we ended up having to sell it because we were going to try to do a single family rental on it, but we couldn't find any good tenants in the market that it was in. There was a couple of really dumb things that we did on that one. So we ended up selling it and it was fine. And we made a little bit of money and, moved on with life. But
Sure.
yeah, yeah. So
Learning opportunity, which is what it's all about.
yeah,
So
exactly.
so then life happens, and now where we are is you're in a position where you're kind of, even though it's been a little bit, you're in a position where you're rebuilding or starting a new business right now, correct?
Yeah, so I'm doing the same thing that
Right.
I'm doing multifamily real estate investing now. But I was previously with my husband, and I'm no longer. So
Hmm.
it is me and my team of people and all of those kinds of things. So um, it's me branding me. It's the brand of Amy and what my experience is and what I'm able to do and what my team is able to do and all of those kinds of things. And I've had some investments just on my own, so a couple of them already. And so, but getting through that, and then in the starting over part is when you get into real estate investing or multifamily real estate, there's lots of groups out there that you can join, right? You can join this group, or you can join that group, or whatever that might be, and those are helpful for a lot of people, right? Because it's network learning and it's all of that kind of stuff. So the starting over part for me was, I'm not in any of those groups anymore. I mean, I was in one,
Sure.
and I chose. I mean, I've been doing, by the time like this year rolled around, I've been doing this for like 10 years. So I have an investor list, and I had some of that kind of stuff, and so I didn't want to pay, the thousands of dollars or whatever they ask you to pay to stay in the group. So I was like, yeah, let me see if I can do this on my own, right?
Hmm.
It's been kind of an interesting experience. So Well, and then not only that, I decided to do it, and then this thing called the COVID pandemic hits, and then so you're just like, ah, damn. So yeah, so I picked a most opportune time to start branding myself and start completely over. So
So,
yay.
so talking about branding then,
Mm-hmm.
what are you doing right now? Because people who listen and watch this thing,
Mm-hmm.
this program,
Yep.
that's kind of what they're interested in learning about is how do they do their branding, how do they do their
Right.
marketing and stuff like that from a beginner side, but also
Yes.
kind of like you, where it's kind of a rebuilding thing. It's like you've got the background, but now you're rebuilding or rebranding entirely. So what
Yeah.
are you doing right now that's working, and what are you doing that's not working?
So I social media is really really helpful. So there's lots of I kind of go where the people are. There's lots of multifamily groups on Facebook. So Facebook is one of the places that I kind of hang out. But I'm using more and more LinkedIn,
Okay.
and LinkedIn becomes, because you're allowed to, through your connections, it's supposed to be more business related. So you can basically put out on your profile a lot of information about you and your featured content and a lot of that kind of stuff, and that helps people when they're getting to know you. So my typical person that I talk to is an investor. Somebody who's looking at investing in a multifamily or probably one of my projects, like the one I'm doing now. And so they don't know me personally. They can't come meet me, right? Um, so they have to learn about me in many ways as they can. So I have websites, and those are helpful to an extent. I don't have the greatest website ever. I know I need to fix it. But the best way that they've said, I mean, because they stalk you before they come talk to you, they stalk you and they look up at you everywhere they can find you, right? So I have
Hmm.
a couple of content sources. One is I'm on the Forbes Real Estate Council. That's just really helpful because Forbes provides credibility, and I publish out on Forbes a lot, um, and I've done articles on due diligence, and some of that kind of stuff is they'll select me for that article, and so it's really kind of nice that they do. And then there's expert panels and stuff where they ask you questions and they like my answers, so they put me out there, which is kind of nice. Really, um, he's just um,
We've all got to have our assistants. My
I
assistant
know.
is over doing something. So yeah.
I know. Yeah, mine's rolling around on the floor growling. So apparently that's what he likes to do. Shush. So that's helpful, but it's using that content, using the podcast. I think the best thing is any sort of interview like this is
Hmm.
is what they love, and they like to understand your personality. They got to understand, what you're talking about. I'm kicking my dog. Stop, weirdo. Um, so yeah, so it's like everybody knows who Captain is because he's on every Zoom call. So they, ask me about my dog all the time. But they look at your posts. They look at what you. I mean, they do. They stalk you on social media. So
Sure.
your social
Sure.
media has to be, especially on LinkedIn, is used a lot now, like a lot more than it used to be. So that
Okay.
one's very, very essential. So, and then the and then Facebook is too, but not as much. I mean, I use it to connect with people that I know, and people are kind of weird, and they use it for. I think sometimes people misabuse Facebook a little bit, and they'll connect to you, and they'll try to hit on you, or whatever. It's just weird. But LinkedIn, that stuff doesn't happen, and it's very professional, and it's all about connecting and networking, and it's so that's kind of why I like LinkedIn. And then, but I've got these interviews, and I've got stuff out on YouTube, and I'm building up a YouTube channel and talking about stuff, and I think that's going to be really really helpful. The more people can kind of see you and understand this is you talking about a certain subject, whatever you would be multifamily operations, and like you need to do this and this, then they build trust, right? It's the whole thing is about building trust, and especially when you're talking with people and money and then getting them to invest with you, it's all about, do I trust this person with my money, that kind
Sure.
of thing. that kind of thing. Or,
Sure.
trust the person with anything, right? But it is all about building
Yeah.
trust. So, yeah.
Yeah. That's what I was thinking. You get clients, not you, just people in general, get
Hmm.
clients and say, okay, well, this is going to cost you 10, 15, $20,000.
Hmm.
How do they build that credibility
Right.
to be able to build the trust and go,
Yep.
you know, give me your money?
Yeah.
So
Down
what you're
the road.
saying,
Yeah.
yeah. So what you're saying that's worked really well for you is building that credibility by just putting yourself out there more and more so people
Yeah.
can find information and content and stuff that you've put
Yes.
out.
And giving that to them for free. Like, I don't like all these yahoos that charge you money every month so they can teach you. I think that's a lot of malarkey. Like, I think if you're trying to build your brand, then the more free content you can give somebody, and the more that you can educate them on certain things. But I think, yeah, now if you want to monetize it, and you eventually part of your brand is to educate people, and yes, you have expenses and you got to pay yourself back for something. Maybe have elite access content or whatever, but a lot of the stuff is you need to my end game is basically to get as many investors as possible, so that when I go buy a property, I have the ability to raise capital, right? And so if I'm able to build trust with you by just educating you on, this is how I manage property, this is how I approach this situation, this is how I approach this situation, like and they're like, yeah, I kind of like that, and I kind of like her. That's kind of my focus. Now, everybody else has their own gig, and
Sure.
they do their things, but I educate to build trust and credibility. I don't educate to make money. So that's kind of the way
That
it is.
makes sense. I mean, that's one thing that I've taught people for years and years. I
Yeah.
used to tell my dad all the time, you need to be putting out content, even though
Hmm.
for the type of roofing that he did,
Yeah.
he was recognized by the tile manufacturers for the region he was in. He was the number one guy. He was their guy that they went to.
Mm.
And I told him, I'm like, put out content, put out videos, do all this stuff. His big fear was always being stolen from. It's like,
Oh
I
no.
don't want to tell people stuff because it'll be, they'll steal it. It's like, but
Yeah.
they can't steal you. They can't steal
Yeah.
your personality. They can't steal your relationships.
And
Um,
I will
so
say, that's true. I mean, like, and I think it's maybe in our generation, most definitely in the generation before, but now that in our generation is some a little bit. The younger generation, I don't care. But I think it's more of a recognition that if you do put out all this education and all this stuff out there, honestly, at the end of the day, I think it bolsters you more than it hurts you. And then also, I mean, because no offense, but people are inherently lazy. I mean, the more you educate them, the more they understand all the stuff that you have to go through in order to get this investment to work, and it takes a lot of knowledge and expertise. I mean, because you can't explain every scenario that comes across your desk. I mean, there's like a
sure,
million of them, right? And so you just go, okay, this is where we're at, and this is what we're doing, this is what we experienced today, and this is kind of how we handled it, and all of that kind of stuff. And but yeah, but I don't think anybody wants to steal.
right.
Honestly, I think
So
I
that
think
was
yeah.
you as you were saying that brought something else to mind though. How do you when you're creating content or doing a video or something like that, and even though you're in the beginning stages for yourself,
Yep.
how do you come up with topics? What I mean, if is it just something that you think of, or is it something that you've heard people ask, or something
Yeah.
that you might have seen online, or where do you
Some
come
of
up with
it
your
is
topic
that.
ideas?
Yeah. So some of it is that. Some of it is like, so I'm in these Facebook groups in my
Mm-hmm.
industry. And so a lot of newbie people will go in there and they'll ask newbie questions, you know? And so people kind of answer them. And I'm like, oh, that'd be a great topic to talk about. And so it'd be something
Okay.
like that, right? So I would basically, and I would pick through, I kind of went through like some of these forums I was in and the questions I answered. And I was like, yeah, but you don't, and so some of it was like how to handle a seller, like when they're buying a transaction, like the seller's doing this and and they're doing that. And because there's so many things. I mean, real estate's easy, people are hard. I mean, like real estate's real estate. And like then you have this transaction, you go through this and do this, but then people are crazy and they do stupid things. So that's the nuance to real estate. But
That's some
but yeah,
nuance.
so that's kind of how I found my topics. But then also like honestly, because real estate is so freaking broad. Even multifamily
Yeah.
real estate is so broad. Um, and a lot of people are in the game of educating new investors. So and there's a lot of those, right? Grant Cardone, or you go to, Lifestyle Unlimited or Brad Sunrock or Real Estate Mentor, or, there's a ton of them. There's a ton of people trying to teach people all the great things about multifamily real estate. So I didn't want to. That's a red ocean to me. I'm like, I didn't want to go in there. I'm like, so
Mm-hmm.
my recent stuff that I'm doing is all around how do you become a best in class multifamily operator. Like, so what do you do in marketing? What do you do in lease management? What do you do when you're, how do you look at a renovation or do your due diligence or do some of the things? So all the back end nuts and bolts of actually operating a property, I don't see a lot online. And I come across, I mean, I bought several properties from these people, that are mom and pop operators. And that's a lot of multifamily is mom and pop operators. They're like, the one I'm buying in Houston now, I'm like, oh, dude, seriously? I mean, I'm just like, you're so, like, why are you doing this? You're losing so much value and so much income. Why? I just kind of want to smack him side the head going, that's dumb, but it's okay. That's why I'm buying it, because he's not the smartest operator. But I think there's
Give me
lots of
the
books like that, right? I mean,
sure.
I bought one property and the lady, they're doing their books on paper, like a general ledger, like those old general ledger book things. That's how she was. That was how she was doing her accounting. And I was like, oh my lord, shoot me in the
So
foot.
so what you're saying there is there's room in multifamily investing for educating people on how to do it right.
Yeah, yeah, I think so. I mean, I think there is, and it's about. I mean, and that's the biggest thing, right? You get into those groups, and I've talked to lots of different people that are in those groups. I was in one, but I know people that are in two or three of the others, right? They're great about teaching you how to get a transaction done. That's it, right? That's like 1/10 of the stuff that you need to know in multifamily. What you need to know is,
Sure.
like, once you get the damn thing, how do you make sure the sucker performs, right? And so yeah, so yes, you got to go be able to go evaluate deals and go buy them and be able to raise capital and do all this stuff. But if you can do all those things and you can't operate a lick, no one's ever going to invest with you again, right?
Sure.
And so I think, if I can help, and a lot of people, I feel bad, but there's a lot of people that get into this, right? And they sunk in almost all of their money because it's supposed to make them a crap ton of money, and it will if you run it right. It can, and you buy it right. It can totally do that. I mean, multifamily has the ability to do that, but you just got to
Right.
know how to do it, right? And so you got to
Yeah.
know how to use software. You got to know what strategies. So that's kind of my YouTube channel that's coming. I've got topics. I got a bunch of topics lined out, and like I did stupid things like, Marketing Monday and Tech Tuesday and let's do a walkthrough Wednesday and, like things like that, that I would post
Sure.
out once a week, right?
Sure.
Yeah. So that's kind of, because there's so many things into just multifamily operations that you have to know too. It's very, so I was trying to make logical sense of it, is what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
So yeah. So,
No, that makes
yeah.
sense, and it's kind of cool what you're saying because even though you're putting it into one industry, it's
Mm-hmm.
stuff that can be applicable to everything. I mean, by doing your videos or sequencing out your videos
Mm-hmm.
into different subtopics of what the greater scheme of things is.
Yeah.
I like that walkthrough Wednesday. I mean, I like that. It's a good way to do those. And the
Yeah.
other thing that I noticed too is you started in one thing. You started with the flub in the single family residence. I think we've all done
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Where you buy your first one and you think that you need to make it the best thing on the block, and then you look at the other houses and you realize the
Yeah.
best thing on the block isn't going to rent or in the crappiest house on the block.
Yeah.
There's a reason for
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. We
And it's the same
over-contracted
thing.
it. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And people do that. People do that with their marketing all the time. They'll
Oh,
outsource
yeah.
their marketing. They'll outsource their marketing and then
Mhm.
find out that they could have done it a different way because they get this tunnel vision and go one path when what they should have done was opened it up and broadened a little bit and maybe taken a different path. Kind of like what you're saying with Facebook. Facebook has its place,
Mhm.
but Facebook really is a social place. That's where people
Yeah.
come to socialize.
Right.
LinkedIn, like you said, is more of a business networking kind of a thing, and that's where people go to do business. The two don't usually cross sectors, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah, so it's interesting. And so, do you have your own group on LinkedIn? Have you started your own group or done any of that stuff, or do you just go into other people's groups?
No, I haven't. I haven't. I did it initially, and then I was going to kind of do all of that kind of stuff, and then I just didn't because there's a ton of them, right? I'm
Sure.
always the person that has to be different. I don't know why. I just, I was like, I always just have to be, and there's like 50 or 60 of them. Everybody's starting a group and doing this, that, or the other, and so I think I truly think that LinkedIn is catching on to that kind of ability that Facebook has in that arena. And there are LinkedIn groups, but and now LinkedIn's doing events and they're doing more and more stuff that I think it'll eventually migrate over because it doesn't make sense to be on Facebook. It's just weird. They just have a better event channel and they have a better, the way to post out videos live, and they just have certain. So I don't think it's going to go away, but I think
Yeah.
I think LinkedIn is going to become more relevant in that space, and because they get it right, because Facebook is just so prevalent. But it just doesn't. I can't go have a. I can have an expectation if I'm going to go have a conversation with somebody about real estate investing, where I'm connecting with somebody I don't even know, like from Boo, um, that I would say, hey, it looks like we have similar interests in real estate. Would you like to connect? And most 99% of the time, I would expect that connection to come back, right? But I would
Sure.
be able to do something making a friend on Facebook from somebody I'm trying to see if their profile looks like something that might be beneficial to me and them. Sometimes you can see it on Facebook, but sometimes you can't. Sometimes people don't put that information on Facebook, right? So
Right.
I think eventually, but the group thing in Facebook is very prevalent, and there's tons of them, tons of them there, and where
Yep.
people can ask questions and that kind of stuff. So, you know, but I wouldn't. It's just interesting. You use them for two different things. Two different things. I don't think Facebook. I don't think you could stop Facebook marketing. And when you do in my business, especially when I get into the property management side, a lot of our marketing, when I'm actually advertising for leases and all that stuff, a lot of that's done on Facebook. A ton of it
You
is done
do.
on Facebook.
Yeah.
And I
So
don't
you do.
really do traditional advertising anymore. I just do all social media. Like online social media, digital marketing. That's all we do for leasing nowadays. I don't even like pay like the traditional paid advertisements like on apartments.com and all that stuff. That stuff crap expensive. Just get on Facebook Marketplace and you can do it fairly easily. So yeah,
Right.
yeah,
Easy, cheap, and
yeah,
targeted.
yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
That's
it's understanding all of that kind of stuff, and I think social media obviously will morph a little bit. To I mean, I wish that Facebook would allow you to determine your own targeting, right? Except for like on ads and stuff like that, you can do that, but they filter out so much stuff, and I know why they do it. But if I wanted to, like in LinkedIn, if you want to filter in certain people, and they have this whole like sales navigator thing. And so, if
mhm.
you want to go connect or build a lead database or a lead list where you can go send a crap ton of messages to people and start building up, interest in something. They have a software for that, which is great. So and it's okay because it's kind of expected. right? You're on
Yeah.
LinkedIn. You're going to talk about business. Someone's going to hit you up because they want to talk about business. Okay.
Right.
And nobody really gets offended by that. Like, they would be offended if you cold called them. They wouldn't be offended if you like messaged them on LinkedIn. Hey, you interested? No, thank you. You know, it's still kind of a polite place. So it's kind of
Right.
interesting. Some
Still,
people aren't. But yeah.
with
So,
with the canned responses.
yeah.
So, and that brings up another thought, because I've been on LinkedIn since LinkedIn started personally. Um, I mean, it's my space, so I've been around all of these like when they
Mm-hmm.
started. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Um, when you're doing your marketing on LinkedIn, do you use any of the or responding to people marketing to you? Do you use any of the canned responses, or do you make all your stuff custom direct to that person?
No, I don't use any of the canned stuff. I don't know. Maybe because I'm old fashioned, I just start typing. I don't like click and pick. So
Right?
or pick and click. But um, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, when I send
How's
out
your
messages
response?
to people, or when I'm responding to messages,
Either one.
either one. So I use this thing called I'm in this group that teaches you how to like lead generate from LinkedIn, and
Okay.
there's this software called We Connect, and what it
Okay.
does is you use LinkedIn Sales Navigator, and it builds you can filter on whoever your target lead is, right? And they have to have the title CEO or VP. They're in a first connection or a second connection, first or second place, right, in your thing. And then say you want them to be in Texas, or there's all sorts of filtering things that you want to have on there, and you go like that, and then LinkedIn goes, here you go, here's all these people, right? So then you take that list and you export it into WeConnect. And what WeConnect does is it builds out a messaging system for you. So you put in hi and then the field thing, and it puts in their first name. And you built out a message, right? And then if they don't respond to you, then you can build out message number two. And then it'll auto generate that message number two, right? And then, message number three. And then, like, have a nice day or whatever. Thanks for, ignoring me, whatever it is, right? So then what you do is, so you build that system out for you. And then, so say your list is 1,500 people, it'll
Right.
automatically send out 100, like whatever it's like 50 or 100, whatever the max that they'll send. So there'll be 100 messages, and I'll do it for 100 next 100 messages, and so it builds your generation system for you, so you're not having to go in there and manage it and do it yourself, right? So, which is
Gotcha.
helpful, and then it'll keep track of, okay, on this list, how many people responded to you, how many people, and like it's a marketing sales funnel kind of
Sure.
thing.
So
Yeah.
you're doing
So,
so you're doing a you're going out, you're creating your list on LinkedIn, you're doing a drip campaign.
yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Um, as those people respond, do you have them go into some type of a funnel system, or do you just respond manually then?
So then I respond manually, and that's the next piece I need to build. Is the next piece I
Okay.
need to build is the funnel. Once I get them to respond to me, then how do I get them through that kind of funnel process? And I've seen Russell Brunson stuff, the click funnel thing. Honestly, I think that's annoying. I hate those websites. Like, they drive me bananas. Like, get here, go here. Are you really, really sure? Or don't you want to do this? Aren't you going to get here? I'm like, well, just give me the whole damn thing and let me make a decision. You know?
Yes. One, a lot of people don't like one-time offers,
Yeah,
OTOs. I mean,
yeah,
they work. There's a reason for them. I'm in the same camp as you. It's like, okay, just give me all the options, and I can click. I can
yeah,
hit a button and say yes, I want that. No, I don't want
yeah.
that.
I know.
So I'm with you there. But one thing they don't teach, or a lot of people don't teach, is you don't need to have a really long funnel or product selling system. So it's like, if you've got a book, you don't need to sell 40 things past the book. It's like, okay, I've got a book and I've got an audio book of me reading it. Do you want
There you
that
go.
or not?
Yeah, exactly.
Uh,
It was
because
perfect.
ultimately, all I really want to do is put you into my email um,
Mhm.
list so I can, market to you later down the road, which
Yeah.
is the better way to. It's honestly, it's the better way to do it.
Yeah. And
Um,
generally, it's once they respond to me that, hey, yes, they're interested in learning more about multifamily real estate. I'm not Grant Cardone. I'm not going to sell them a class, right?
sure,
All I want them to do is like, hey, so, and then we just start the conversation. And so I'm like, well, do you know anything about it? If you don't, I mean, I don't have any, I need to, that's the next piece, right? That I need to develop. Okay, you don't know anything about multifamily investing. You kind of heard about it. I need to develop out like a resource list for them going, hey, I'm happy to talk to you about it all day long. Here's some other things for you to go check out and read.
gotcha,
Here's my book list or whatever. It's something like that, something simple that they can
sure.
kind of look at. And then I'll just kind of keep them in my email campaign and just tell them, here's the deal I'm doing. This is what's going on with it. So that they kind of get comfortable with me and just build up my investor list. That's probably where I need to go next. So, I still, working through it. So, yeah.
But that's good, and it's been really good going through what you're doing too. Just because a lot of people they'll come across somebody's program or read somebody's articles or whatever. I mean, I'll put stuff out personally, or somebody on my team
Mhm.
will put something out, and it'll be 20 steps to do something or 15 steps to do. Well, I know that all those steps can be overwhelming to people. You
Oh, yeah.
don't have to do them all. So really, I've enjoyed this because what you've been saying all along is I need to do this next step, but I've done these other things,
Mhm.
and this is what it's gotten so far. And now I need to do the next step rather than I can't do anything until I have all these things in place and then go. You've already started going
Oh, yeah.
and worry about it later. Yeah,
Yeah. Because at
that's
some
a
point, I mean, it's if you wait, well, it's like the old adage, right? If you wait till everything's perfect to have a baby, you'll never have a baby. You just won't. You know? I mean, if you want a company to start, you start it. Like if you
right.
want whatever it is, you go and you figure it out. But honestly, your perfect plan, like when you get down to step 10, you're probably like, oh hell, step 6 through 10 sucked, and that didn't work, and so now I need to
Yeah.
revamp and do it anyway. So you
Or
just go.
or what happens is all of these perfect steps
Mm-hmm.
are perfect steps until 2001 come along,
Yes.
2008 comes along,
Oh yeah.
2020 comes along.
Yes.
You
Right.
know, I
Yeah.
mean, there's going to be another one.
Yeah.
People will
There
will get
will.
through
I mean,
this,
yeah,
and there
I'm
will be
so
another one.
thankful that I went through that. I started investing in 2008, right? So I started investing during the recession. And I said,
Sure.
we made awesome investments. Like, especially in the multifamily, like in 2010, everybody was like, don't invest in multifamily. You're crazy. Blah, blah, blah. You're nuts. They're nuts. Never going to, blah, blah. Oh, we made money hand over fist. It was awesome. Like we were like, at the end trying to go, well, do we sell? Do we not sell? And he's like, pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. We're making a crap ton of money. What do we do? So
Right?
yeah. I mean, that
That's
was that was where we were in like 2012 and 2013. We had all these investments in Austin, all these multifamily properties in Austin, and we just couldn't, like, it was a ton of money coming in, ton of money coming in. We're
sure.
like, oh, there's got to be a recession somewhere, and that's like, should have never sold them. It was the dumbest thing we ever did was sell those suckers, but you did.
But you didn't know it then,
I know,
and
I know. Yeah.
but point of that whole thing is you've had all these bumps in the road, but you're still starting things. And it's funny, you're starting your things in the
Hmm.
bumps in the road,
Oh
which
yeah, yeah,
which is actually, historically the best time to do anything.
right.
Historically, it's always best to do things when everything's crap. I
Yes,
mean,
it is.
well,
It is.
think about
I
it.
mean, right
One of
now, I'm having so I'm trying to raise capital, right, on a
yep,
project for Houston, and and it's interesting because kind of what I'm facing right now is I'm talking to folks and trying to raise capital is, well, Amy, there's a pandemic, but everybody's so sick of COVID they don't even give a crap anymore. Like they don't even want to talk about it. But what's the deal now is a presidential election, right? And so everybody's kind of just hanging out and they're kind of waiting to see who wins. And I'm like, okay, so that means if Trump wins, I get my money, and Biden wins, I'm screwed. Or I don't know. Or if Biden wins, and then I don't think it honestly matters. I think people just want it to be over. And when it's over, then everybody will just kind of calm down again and relax.
Sure.
But that's kind of been like, as I go and I talk to people and I'm trying to raise capital and do kind of stuff, everybody's just kind of hanging tight. So which is okay. I've got time, right? I got time after the election. I got about another 30 days. So I got to raise capital for it. But it's an interesting thing. Like you find this all the time. Like when we were trying to find money for our project in 2010, when we were first building our first multifamily, we couldn't get a loan on it. Like, so we had to raise all the capital to buy it. Like, and couldn't find a loan for that one. I mean, there was like, hookers in the vacants and like all sorts of crazy stuff that happened. And then you just let it go. And they weren't maintaining it. And so we, our lead sponsor guy, he went out and we helped it, and we all put in our money together and we all went and bought it at all cash, which is kind of crazy. We got a great deal on it. Yeah.
That is pretty crazy. I mean, we did a very similar thing. We bought and couldn't get a loan and had to cash it out ourselves, and it's crazy stuff. So,
and I don't know if it'll get there now, but so when you're branding, I guess back to the whole marketing and branding thing is, when I talk to people now, they have all looked at my LinkedIn profile. All of them have, which I have like pimped out because I know that they're going there. So I've like put every single podcast that I've ever been on is in there. Like my Forbes articles are in there. Like I've like actually taken time in the about section to talk to them about exactly all of this is Amy and who she is and all this other stuff, because I know they're going there. It's like my perfect web page, right? And then I show them my experience and I do all this other stuff. But the stuff that they gravitate to are the interviews and podcasts and stuff. Like some of them might read the article, but I don't know what it is about video. This freaking video works. And so that's what they do. They all go look at me talking on a podcast. And that's what they're like, and everybody's like, oh yeah, that was a great podcast you did on the other day about this. So I don't know what it is, but video works and it's really kind of cool. And that's why I'm so excited about the YouTube thing, because I think that's really going to help. And honestly, I'm not sure I think podcasts are going to work because I don't know how, I think eventually it'll go to video casts or whatever, right?
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think.
What I tell people all the time, do everything in video, whether you use the video or not. So people will say, well, I don't want to be on camera, whatever their excuse is, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The more you do it, the more you do it, the more you get used to doing it, and then it's like no big deal anymore.
Right.
I mean, when this whole thing started back in March, people didn't want to do Zoom videos, and now it's like, well, okay, well, let's just do another one. And it's like nobody cares anymore. Right. But I always tell people, do everything on video, because as you've said a few times, everything is based on the content that you produce. So if you do something on video, you have an audio, so you can pull out all of the audio, and you can do transcriptions. So from the transcription, now you've got all of the text. And then if there are any really cool little gold nuggets or whatever, you can do memes from those. So now you post a picture of yourself with your quote, post it on Facebook, post it on Instagram, post it on LinkedIn, post it on Twitter, so now you've got all of these different forms of content, all from doing a video. Without ever having to think about it again. So we've been on now for 65 minutes. In that 65 minutes, I can guarantee you we probably have about 300 minutes worth of stuff.
Oh, wow. I didn't even think
Yeah,
about that. But yeah, that's cool.
easily. Well, this is obviously going up on a podcast. My podcast is on 9 different channels, 9 different podcast
Oh,
platforms.
cool. Cool.
So
Yeah.
that's
Okay.
that's 900 or 9 hours right there at one time.
Oh,
Plus
yeah,
we've
yeah.
got
So
plus
that
we've
took
got YouTube. Plus we have
yeah.
YouTube, so that's 10 hours.
Uh-huh.
Facebook, this will go up on Facebook, so there's 11 hours.
Right.
That's just in unedited content. So yeah, so keep cranking out the videos, keep doing that stuff,
Yep.
pull stuff out of it, listen to them, on Anchor, do podcasts with those and everything. So Amy, is there anything else we should throw into this before we call it a day?
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I think the best thing that
What other tidbits do you have?
I think the best thing that I've seen or people have said that like people who do so I've been interviewed a couple times from people, and the recurring theme that I hear that people really really like, and they've told me, and I'm not tooting my own horn or anything, but I think it works for a lot of people is they're like, Amy, you're just really authentic. And so I think a lot of people want that. I think that that's like,
Sure.
especially in the real estate industry. Oh my Lord, there's so many flashy people with their sunglasses and all that other stuff. And like, I'm not that. I'm never going to be that. That ain't happening. Right. And so, I could, I put a little makeup on today. That's all you're getting out of me. Like, it's just not, it's, you know, but I think, yeah, I can't even fake that. Like, if I tried, it would be so bad. You would be laughing at me because I'd be like, I can't even fake being flashy. Like, but I don't think it's what people want anyway. I mean, at the end
Yeah.
of the day, I mean, the business that anybody's in, it being in business, whatever it is, right? It's tough. It sucks. It like beats you up, and it like, spits on you while you're down, and it does all sorts of stuff, right? I mean, and it just, and it stomps on you a couple of times and rubs your face in the dirt, right? And so it's just it's very it kills you on time. It does all this stuff. So when you have somebody that is really kind of flashy, I think the first impression, but the first reaction people go is, eh, they kind of, I don't know, like, and I don't want people to have that reaction with me on anything, especially now because first impressions are so important.
Sure.
So, like, if somebody looks at me and we're on an interview or whatever, and in the first 30 seconds they go, yeah, I don't like her. And that's all I get out of them, right?
Yep.
First 30 seconds. So I try to be just honest, and that's all I know how to be is just honest. And I don't try to, brag a lot or anything like that. I just talk and I just go, yeah, this is what I think, and this is where we are, and I try sometimes, on the answers and stuff like on Facebook or whatever. Some people or I'm in these LinkedIn groups, or they're asking me questions, and sometimes I'm not nice. I'll be like, I don't mean to be harsh, but that was your fault. Like, you shouldn't do that, or something like that. I get the most reactions when I'm like really that blunt, right? And I'm just like, and being in construction forever, that's all I know how to do. That's it, right? Like, I'm blunt. I got all the niceness beat out of me. No.
Hey, thanks for keeping the conversation clean.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, being blunt and honest doesn't hurt anybody, right? And especially if if you're being, not personally attacking them, but if you're like, look, it's you have to be in this business or any business, you have to be professional, and so don't complain when you did something that someone took advantage of you, but you were the knucklehead. Like, I'm sorry,
Sure.
we need to know how to act in business. And so,
Yep.
and I know it's not like I haven't made mistakes and got frustrated about them. And I have, plenty. I made plenty. But yeah. So I
We
think
all
being
have to. We all
authentic
have to.
is helpful.
Yep. We all have to take our lumps. We all have to get
Yeah,
through them or don't get through them. If you don't get through them, that's your choice too. Either way. So
that is very true. Yeah.
Yeah. But Amy, I really appreciate you taking time and jumping on here, sharing some of your perspectives, wisdom, and thoughts. So thank you.
Yeah, sure.
We should do it again because there were some rabbit holes I wanted to go down. We just didn't have time to do, but
Oh, yes, I know.
we can do it again. So
Very cool.
I'm gonna wrap it for today, but I appreciate it, and we will talk to you again another time. And I appreciate everybody joining us as well. Have
Very
a great
cool.
day.